Hi, everybody. John Self. We're going to be with you in a moment for Career Live. Today, we're going to be talking about the value of having a doctorate degree and a bunch of certifications. Does it help you with your career? We'll talk about that today here on Career Live. Hi, everybody. It's December the 13th, the lucky Friday of the 13th. We're delighted you're with us today. Welcome to Career Live, our regular Friday feature. And so just some housekeeping details. We will continue through the month of December, except on holidays, offering our Lunch and Learn on Tuesday, which is a live coaching stream for anybody who wants to join us. And we talk about some critical issue of finding a job or managing your career. And that's been popular, especially on replay on our YouTube channel, Guiding Your Career, John G. Self. And so you can always check it there. And then Wednesday afternoon, our flagship show, Office Hours at 4 p.m. Central Time. And that the same thing applies. It's been available to everybody now. And here's the but. On January 1st, the first weekend of January, all of that information, the free coaching, all of that goes behind the paywall. And to become and to get access to this, you have to pay $250 enrollment fee plus $79 a month. And basically what that does is we're going to cover every week, we'll cover some important part of the search. We get feedback from our members all the time, and they tell us what they're having problems with or what they're encountering. And so we then plan the next week's kind of themes to address some of those issues. So if you are in between jobs, or if you're an outplacement and your company's program wasn't that robust, and you don't have a lot of money to invest in $4,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 for outplacement, you can pay the tuition, the enrollment fee, and $79 a month. And over 2 or 3 or 4 months, you're going to hear everything you probably need to know to do a better job. Plus, as a member, you get four weekly 30-minute check-in calls at no additional cost. So we think it's a great value. It's called Your Career Community. It's part of the Guiding Your Career Academy. JohnGSelf.com is the underwriter, and we hope that you'll take some time to look over what we're doing in that regard. I think we have some good information. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself if you're new to this site. I spent 27 years as an executive recruiter. I worked across 45 states in the U.S., including Alaska in the winter. I also worked in 6 countries on 4 different continents. I've interviewed thousands and thousands of executives. So I'm really good at that. I taught the course for the American College of Healthcare Executives at their annual Congress every year for more than 10 years. So I've had a lot of experience interviewing, teaching interviewing. And how I approach it is, not a lot of theory. It's just practical application and coaching. We have a coaching course called Mastering the Art of the Job Interview. It's 8 weeks of 8 weeks of coaching, 5 mock interviews with feedback as we go through the process. A lot of people have taken that in the past and said it was an incredibly helpful piece of information, and so we are offering that course. If you are become a member, the course list at $1,425 for 2 months and 5 mock interviews. But if you are a member, you pay the $250 to $79 a month, but you get to take 40% off of the any course price that we have. If you want to go for our premium price product, which is I think around $10,000, you can take 40% off that as well. So membership is really the way to go. Now, part of membership is we want to create a community where you guys have the opportunity to share with one another experiences you're having, questions that you get that want to get some ideas about. And the community, when you become a member of the Your Career community, we will fill you in on how to use the community page. Now, effective, if you become a community member, let me know so we can be sure to give you the passwords for the private sites to view our live streams every Tuesday, Wednesday. We don't know how CareerLIVE is going to come into play. I think CareerLIVE is going to stay open to the public, but only just brief snippets of what we're doing in terms of our live coaching. Sort of as they say, a taste. So today we're going to talk about ROI for graduate degrees and credentials. Now, this is something that people, if they hear something they don't like, they get really angry. And so if I make you angry today, I'm sorry. But number two, this is my perspective. Number three is whether you get a graduate degree or not. In some areas, you almost have to have one. But getting a doctorate degree, that's, maybe a little bit of ego. In academia and science research and pharmaceutical, they value that. In running a hospital, running a nursing home, running a services business, it's not necessary. And so it's all about, will that add enough value to my career so that I can justify what is pretty significant cost over a 2-year period. So the other thing is, a lot of people say, well, I can get it cheaper online. Okay, that you can. And there's some really credible online opportunities out there. But let me tell you something. People don't value online PhD programs like they do anything else. Okay. An undergraduate degree is now sort of common. It's more common, more accepted because of the pandemic. There was a lot of online education, and there was not a lot of sense that we were losing any value there. But an online degree, if it's not a robust, rigorous program from a really well-respected organization, then you're probably not going to get your money's worth in terms of the return on investment. Okay. Now, a lot of people say, it's always been my dream to have a doctorate. I want somebody to call me doctor. Okay. Well, first of all, in healthcare, you can really get yourself in trouble if you want everybody, including doctors in the hospital, to call you doctor. I know pharmacists that are PharmDs, a doctorate in pharmacy. They don't even want the doctors to call them doctor because they feel like it's, that it's just, it's not disrespectful, but it's, the doctors just are uncomfortable with that. And quite frankly, physicians have worked hard for their degrees, and it's a very select community. So if you do get a doctorate and you're in healthcare, be respectful, whatever the local custom is. If the local doctors don't chafe, then fine. If they do, then be respectful so that you won't be looking for another job. Okay, so let's go through this, and we'll talk a little bit about how to value this, okay? Pow. I think today's agenda, we're going to start with the job market update. We always have to do that because it is changing so rapidly. The next thing we want to do is focus on value, not what you want, but what you need. This is a really key part to making a decision about what graduate degrees and what certifications you need to invest your time with. And we're going to talk about some key guideposts for how you should make your decision. And finally, is it worth it? Will you make enough money to pay off your loans? Because we're going to be seeing a new administration in January, and I doubt very seriously they're going to be anything. They're going to even want to get close to the issue of loan forgiveness. That'll require an act of Congress and probably will pass about as quickly as the Dreamer bill passed, which has been around for 4 or 5 or 10 years, and nothing's ever happened on that. So you don't want to spend a lot of money going into a career that you're going to struggle to pay the loan back and think you might get some forgiveness. Probably not. So that's just something you need to consider. You start off by believing in yourself. If you don't have the ability to produce great results, a doctorate is not going to help you. Okay, sorry about that. But we all have our dreams, and some people grow up always wanting to earn a doctorate degree. And I would be the first to say, if that's a real serious dream, then you need to have a real serious conversation with yourself on how you're going to finance it, because it's not cheap unless you do it online. And if it's more of a gratitude, a check the box, something that's really important to you personally, there's not anybody in this world, most of all me, that's going to denigrate that idea. If that's what you really want, then you need to go ahead, full speed ahead. But if you're also going to be worried about how do we pay for this? How do I generate enough income so that I'm not a slave to $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 every month to pay off my student loan? You really need to do your homework and don't get in over your head, particularly if the organization that you're going to work for doesn't value it. You may want it, and that's something important, but you've got to get back to the discipline. So let's talk about the money. I heard some great lines the other day that my father said, my wife and I are so proud of our daughter. She's graduating with a master's degree in English literature with honors. It'll be nice to have her living at home again. Okay. And certainly the implication there is a master's degree in English literature is not what we call a money degree. It's a wonderful degree. It's a great education. But if you spend a lot of money on the master's degree, where are you going to work and use that degree to get your money back, get back, unless dads or mom are paying for it? One father said, my daughter is taking, an advanced to graduate degree in philosophy, and she's asking the big questions about the meaning of life and how do we fit in and all those other big, important questions. He said, I'm asking a small question. Why am I paying for this? What's the value for her going forward? Okay. And unless you're going to teach, or unless that's just an area that you're really passionate about, you're going to do a lot of writing, it may not be worth the investment. Okay. Another father told me, he said, we bought our son a new car for Christmas. He said, last year, he said, it was so wonderful. We got it delivered and it was parked out front. My son didn't know it was there. And we put a big, giant red bow on top of it. And, to tell him, we're really proud of you. And he's going to be graduating with honors in history, and we know he'll probably be an Uber driver. Okay. Well, there's a lot of teaching. There's a lot of teaching jobs that are open at various levels in public schools and in private schools. But let me tell you something. If you pay full price for a graduate degree, master's or a doctorate, and we're going to focus primarily on doctorates today, and you're not earning a substantial income, then you are facing some tough times. So if you say, okay, I have a master's degree, that's all they require, but I really want a doctorate, that'll make me more credible. Some places it will, a lot of places it's not. If you go to apply for a job in a consulting firm and they're looking for people with skilled in leadership and motivation and client services, there's not too much from a graduate doctorate degree you're going to get that helps you do that job. As a matter of fact, I have had clients say, we don't need any doctoral theoretical person. And that's a slam at the doctorate degree. But they say, we want people who can deliver value. We don't care where they went to school necessarily. We just want a track record of value, because the best predictor of their future is what they've done in the past. And if what they've done in the past is go spend a lot of time in graduate school writing papers and now then defending a thesis, doctoral dissertation, we don't see any value in that. So there's some industries that don't value it. If you are going into academia, if you're going into scientific research, if you're going into public policy, where you need to have additional credentials to add to credibility, that's great. That's important. Now, the ROI is still an issue, depending on how much money you're going to make, but that is probably more justifiable. If you're going to be a marketing executive, Getting a doctorate degree does not do one thing to help you do your job better. It's going to teach you concepts, and it's not even going to teach you leadership. So in an undergraduate degree, those are all but necessary, and that's really not on the table for discussion today. However, that depends on what you want to do with your life. And increasingly, thank goodness, we are moving away from this absolute focus on a college degree to be a success in society. It's just not true. It's just not true. You can, if you have skills like, you've always liked working with your hands, and your father was a plumber, or he was an electrician, or he was a home repair carpenter, and you enjoy that, you don't have to go to college to learn how to do that job and be extremely successful. If you do need some college courses, you can get business law and business accounting and things that would be very practical to run your business at a community college at substantially lower fees. So an undergraduate degree is necessary if you're going to work as an executive or manager in a lot of industries. Not all, but most, okay? A master's degree is typically expected in some degrees like healthcare. You almost have to have a master's degree before you're going to be considered for a senior management position. We're going to talk about healthcare credentials in a few minutes, but master's degrees are more likely to be required in certain disciplines than others. Okay, in the newspaper business, if you had a master's degree, then the editor might look up and say, "Great, we won't hold that against you." A doctorate. Nobody wants to hire a doctorate, for something that's a lower level job, because they're going to constantly be trying to, exceed where they're going to be constantly getting out of their lane, is what I'm saying. So I've had clients tell me, don't bring me a doctorate of nursing or a doctorate of whatever. I'm not into a doctorate of management or accounting. I want somebody who has a track record of 5 to 10 years. I want somebody who who knows more than theory and can demonstrate his value over the last 2 or 3 jobs he's had. That's more important to me than a college degree or what level the degree is. So again, some of these jobs, when you look at them, okay, you need to really go back and say, okay, I want a doctorate degree, okay, but my employer doesn't really value it. He's not going to give me any more money for the job, so how can I afford it? Why do I need it? Is it just my ego, or is it really job related? You really want to move if you're going to make a mistake, or if you're going to make a commitment of this size, you really, really need to be focused on, how do you pay for it? What does it mean? So here are some sample costs. There are certainly some that are cheaper, and there's certainly some that are more. For a doctorate in research, the average cost is a little over $84,000. Wow. In Doctor of Philosophy, the average cost is about $80,000. In education, about $79,790. So that's important. But a professional discipline, almost $300,000. Now think about how much you'd be paying on a 30-year mortgage for a $300,000 house. A lot of people can't buy a house today because they can't really figure out how they're going to pay for a mortgage of $250,000, much less $298,000. And so this is something that's really important. What do you want? What do you need? And what's it going to cost me for annual debt service? Because the Trump administration is probably not going to be too keen on debt forgiveness. And the court has already ruled against the Biden administration on some of that. So you can't expect the government to come in and bail you out. What do you want? What do you need? What's the annual income that you're going to need to make to service the debt? Because it's not going away, and they're getting more and more aggressive. Okay. The incoming administration, I want to make this very clear, and it's not a knock on them. They are going to be very inflexible on student loan debt forgiveness. And the Supreme Court is saying, unless Congress approves it, it requires an act of Congress, because they created the program. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. Okay. So you just need to factor in the cost. And the big question then you have to ask, once you look at the cost and what's it going to cost you every month to pay that back over the prescribed amount of time that the lenders will give you, then you have to say, can I make that much money so that I can, have it to pay my apartment, buy a car, pay for the car, the insurance, food, gas, my taxes, blah, blah, blah. You want to make enough money then, and also to pay the fairly significant cost of a graduate degree financed. Okay. Will it enhance your career? You may not make as much money on the front end, but will, as you move up, pay dividends in terms of higher salaries and more prestige and quicker promotions. What will it do to enhance your career? Okay. Now, dreaming of something and wanting something and achieving something and then paying for what you wanted, boy, those are really key, significant issues. And you have to ask yourself, are you willing to accept the consequences? I'm not arguing against the degree. I'm just saying going forward, you have to figure out how you're going to pay for it unless daddy is going to, turn over part of his retirement plan to help you out. And that's not bad if your parents are really committed to doing that. But a lot of parents now are, as they age in the baby boomer era, they're really nervous about how much money they're spending. Okay. Now, there is a moral hazard here, and we've kind of hinted at it before, and that is, asking for a bailout because the student debts are too onerous to pay. Let somebody else pay for it. This is the definition of moral hazard, and it's a dangerous precedent. I will tell you that I hear all this all the time. Well, I'm not too worried about it because if I default, it's probably not going to have any major implications on me. Well, I wouldn't bet the ranch on that. So you have to have a really good sense of how much money you're going to make, and does that give you enough wiggle room to pay the student loan cost, okay? Plus pay for all of your weekly, daily expenses, and still have some money left over for, occasionally, or maybe a week out, weekend, to out to dinner and a movie. So you really need to consider that. Please don't jump in saying you want a doctorate degree. I've always wanted a doctorate degree. I'm going to get a doctorate degree. And then you go, holy crap, I can't afford a doctorate degree. Can you generate sufficient income to cover this and your living expenses? So, questions you're going to ask: is this required in my industry? Do I really have to have it in order to get the job or to move up, so I'm, playing a bigger role, making more money, having a meaningful impact? What other additional advantages will it give me down the road? Will it guarantee me or put me in line for the better job or the better promotion? What will it do for me in the ensuing years? If it's not needed, more than likely the employer is not going to value it. So if you have a doctorate degree and you're trying to get a job as a CEO in a small community hospital that's going to pay you $300,000, that may be enough for you to pay for your doctorate exam degree for financing. But don't, but that's not going to really carry that much weight with your board. They want to see what you've done in the past, not what degrees you have. Okay. Where have you been successful in the past? And then they want to vet that. Okay. So you really have to say, is this going to be valued, and is it going to be worth the money that I'm paying for it? Now we're going to start talking about credentials here in a second, but again, I want to summarize by saying personally, I think this is a mixed bag. The value of degrees varies widely from industry to industry. Academia, science, and thought leadership organizations value it more than people in operations and finance. In those areas, your performance is the driver about whether you get the job or get promoted or get the big raise, not what your academic credential is. And people who go through that process are very angry about that. Well, I've got a better degree. Do you have a better performance? Okay. Do you have better experience? And if the answer is no and no, forget the doctorate. It's not going to help you until you get the experience. So you spent $80,000, $90,000 on a doctorate degree, and you're not getting the kind of jobs you need to pay for the doctorate. So you really have to pay attention to what's it going to cost. Not just the tuition and books, but what other cost is going to be associated with this. If you're moving to a different area to go into a school, then you got room and board. And as we all know right now, with the housing, including the apartment market the way it is, that can be extremely important. Now, the number of college degrees in a non-required vertical can drive down the value. Okay, much in the same way that the hospital fellowship credential has been devalued because becoming more of a preferred than a black letter requirement. Let me explain that. If you're in healthcare, but there are other industries that have similar situations, You were told that if you wanted to get to the top of your game, that you needed to be a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives. And so, of course, everybody joined. And every year they had regional meetings and local meetings and then national congress in Chicago. And it was all about education and learning new things and meeting people. Okay. But then they had a program called the Fellow of the American College and Healthcare Executives. And back in the day, in the 70s, when I came into the industry, what happened was you became an ACHE member, and then to do that, then after you became a member, 2 or 3 years of going to courses and getting up to speed, they had a set requirement that then you could take what is called the governor's exam. Now, here's the funny thing. If you are up to date on all the issues on the governor's exam, if you know everything that's going on today, you may not pass the exam because it's based on questions that may be 4 to 5 years old. Why? Because they have to test these questions and test them and test them and test them to be sure that they're going to get the right response, that people can't complain and say this was misleading. So that when certification agencies put together tests, it's not just let's get together on Saturday afternoon and knock this out. They have to test it. They have to have other people look at it. It's a big process, a big process. So, so when you were in healthcare, if you became a CHE, then after your name, you were allowed to put your name, comma, CHE, Certified Healthcare Executive. Then after 5 years, you could qualify for fellowship. Now, this is a lot. This was really in response to the doctors. We're all creating colleges of this and colleges of that and board certifications here and there. And so a lot of healthcare people said, hey, this puts us at a disadvantage. So they created the American College of Healthcare Executives. And they started pushing, certification. And, when they really made a change in the mid 2000s, I think around 2005, 6, somewhere in there, they realigned the local chapters and gave them more involvement in the process. The other thing they did was they changed the requirements to gain fellowship. The old days, you had to be in the system after you got certified for your certified healthcare executive. Then you had to be certified. You had to go through the certification process, and you became a CHE. And then after 2 or 3 more years, you were allowed to sit for the governor's exam to become a fellow. But it wasn't just an exam. You also had a oral exam that you had to answer questions, and you had to go through an oral interview. So it was really kind of most people made it through unless they failed the additional testing that was required. Most people got through it, but it forced you to really prepare and to be on your best, be on top of your game. Okay. Fellowship now is you just pass one exam and pay your money, and that's it. That's it. And so, although a lot of hospitals still require this, okay, they still want you to have they want you to have that master's degree or that doctorate degree. But, it is now, well, not anybody can get it. But if you come in with a master's degree, and that is a requirement, and you pay your money and you can learn how to take a test, you're home free. Now you can be called a fellow. And the problem with is now you have, back in the day when I came into healthcare, which I realized was in the ice age, but when I came into healthcare, people who were fellows were not common. Now you got people who have fellowships. Man, oh man, some of them can't even find a healthcare facility 2 out of 3 times with a flashlight and a rearview mirror. I mean, it's unbelievable. So what's happened is, because now it's so easy to get a fellowship certification, Fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives, AFACHE, after your name, that is becoming a standard, but everybody has it. So it's not necessarily going to get you any more money or get you any more consideration. So that's a kind of take. Now, the other issue is some people in some industries, you have multiple certifications. Then that's fine because they may have multiple areas with specialization where they need to really drill down and be sure and reassure people that if you hire this person for this, they can do it. They can do the job. So, but I have seen people that have so many certifications, they had to put their name on the left-hand side of the page, and their certifications went across the top. It was if, okay, I got a problem. But I'm gonna really outmaneuver everybody. Excuse me. I took my allergy medication or later than usual today, and it's case it kind of makes you drowsy sometimes. So my apologies. But one woman had certifications from the left side of the page to the right side of the page. Jack Welch, who ran GE during its premier days, Jack Welch once said, somebody who has that many credentials after the name is not necessarily somebody who's informed. They're just dabblers. They dabble at this and that. And I think that we healthcare people and other executives across communications, financial services, they want people who deliver value. They don't care necessarily whether you went to Hartford or Wharton. If you've gone to Wharton School, and you don't produce, really stunning, uh, value, they don't care. They want somebody who can do the job and produce value, somebody who can produce the job and meet their financial targets, meet their strategic targets, and serve the customers better. That's what they're looking for, not necessarily the name that, the credentials after your name. So just keep in mind that's kind of the state of the art right now in graduate education. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I'm happy to answer any questions. We'll keep an eye on it for a few minutes. Um, I think that I think a lot of people are moving away from this. Oh, you got to have the doctorate. That's going to help me with my career. Only if you're in one of those verticals that rewards that credential. But if you're trying to become, a senior manager or a senior executive, they don't care if you're a doctor. In fact, sometimes they'll just say, well, we won't hold that against you. So be very careful before you invest too much money in a degree thinking you're going to get all your money back and it's going to be great. It's really going to be cool. And, that's not necessarily going to happen. If you invest all that money in a doctorate degree, you can find that people don't want to hire you. So if you're going to get a doctorate degree, kind of find out who values that, where they are, and apply to them. And that may be multiples of companies, but it's not going to be everybody. So when you do go after a doctorate, be sure that you have a plan forward, that you understand the risk, that you are prepared to have other people. Let me put it this way: you want to be sure that you're going to invest your time and money with credentials and degrees that will absolutely help elevate your career. If you're in a field that doesn't value that, then the only reason you would want to have a doctorate, it's not going to pay you any more money. It may give you a little prestige, but it's not going to help you line your safety deposit box with gold. It's probably just going to become irrelevant, just like some of the professional credentials are becoming relevant. And when you see credentials all the way across the top of the page, or even 4 or 5 after one person, you kind of question, well, what are they an expert on? And how do they have enough time and money to keep going through the process of recertifying? I mean, you know, doctors will tell you the reason they chose a specialty or a certification was so they could be the very best they could possibly be in that situation. And that's having 12 credentials or having a doctorate doesn't guarantee you can do what you need to do in order to be successful. So if the industry is really going to reward you for a doctorate, then ask them up front before you say yes, and preferably before you start down the applicant trail. So I think that's everything we wanted to talk about today. Let's see, where are we? We're about 11:30, so we're a little bit over today. If you have questions later you want to ask, you could get me at john@johngself.com, john@johngself.com. We'll be back next Tuesday with Lunch and Learn, and next Wednesday for office hours, and next Friday we'll be here with Career Live in a shorter version. So Thanks for joining us. If you want more information on the membership program, how you can earn valuable discounts to really first class educational products, let me know, because I guarantee you the money you're going to save if you buy 2 or 3 programs is phenomenal over what we charge people a la carte, or just to come up and want to take the course, or their company pays for it. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you all have a great weekend. Check out my newsletter today, and it's entitled "You're just going to look, or you're going to fish. You're just going to look, or you're going to fish." And it really talks about what your role is as a leader, what your role is as a person of faith, what your role is in a variety of settings. So check that out at John G. Sell Substack, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.